everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be previewing free agency. It's the time of the year where the front offices all get together. They start to attack the spreadsheets and the financial breakdowns, and they watch all the college film, and they really get together and try to navigate how they want to attack the offseason. And we're going to kind of do the same in this episode. We're going to try to figure out what teams are going to do this offseason, what they should do, and it'll kind of help us with our mock drafts and our draft prep as well. So it should be a fun exercise going through all the top free agents, kind of going through what every single team needs to do this offseason, what we think they should do. Really excited. How are you, Josh?
Doing really good. Yeah, this is the kind of beginning of everything. We'll find out a lot here come March, and we're going to be previewing a lot about free agency. But yeah, free agency is ultimately, the first step before the draft, and it will tell us how a lot of these teams are, it'll give us the keys to what a lot of these teams are going to be doing. So there's going to be a lot of every year, there's going to be a lot of crazy trades. There's going to be a lot of crazy cut candidates, a lot of teams trying to get under the cap to be in cap compliant. So, a lot's to go on in the next month. I think we are literally a month away from free agency frenzy. So I'm excited to dive into this and give a little sneak preview and the beginning of free agency.
Yeah, like exactly 1 month till free agency, and we're really excited about it. Let's just get right into it, starting with the Arizona Cardinals. And you've kind of got two star free agents in this one to talk about. The rest of them are kind of just cheap, really minimum contract type players. But Buda Baker, you have a club option on, and that's a very interesting discussion. We'll start out with Buda Baker because you've got a defensive head coach, Jonathan Gannon, and I mean, that kind of leads into my analysis on Buda Baker this offseason. I think you let him walk. He's going to fetch a pretty penny. He's a really, really good safety. Nothing against Buda. He's still on the right side of 30. He's going to be a star safety for someone. I just think Jonathan Gannon's one of the better secondary coaches in the NFL. And if anyone can elevate safety play, it's Gannon, as we saw with the Eagles, as we saw kind of the drop off after he left. I'm not really worried about Gannon developing safety. So I kind of just want to draft a few safeties this draft and just let Gannon develop them instead of paying like 15 million for a Buda Baker, which he's a star. He's like a face of your franchise. But I do think it's smart to let him walk. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the big two, but yeah, Buda Baker, your club options, $14 million. Obviously, the Cardinals right now are ninth in cap space. With I will tell you the exact number, $44 million in cap space. So they do have room to work. But I think the Cardinals, their top free agent priorities, in my opinion, should probably be to get a star edge. And when you're going to be looking to pay Buda Baker $14 million annually for an aging, safety who at 28 years old playing that position, usually tend to decline. So, I would be in the market if I was the Cardinals, to be looking at defensive end, to be upgrading the offense. Obviously, I feel like we all kind of know what the Cardinals want to do in the draft at number 4 and address a big time wide receiver. But yeah, if I'm the Cardinals, I think there's better options. If I'm the Cardinals for sure, with safety, somebody, maybe on a vet minimum deal, $1 to $2 million, and you really go out and you get some real lethal pass rushers. But yeah, I'm letting Buda Baker. I'm declining that option.
Yeah, and then moving into the Hollywood Brown discussion, I mean, I feel like it's not even a discussion. When Kyler came back last year, Hollywood wasn't used when he did play, when he was healthy. He wasn't relevant for this team. So I think it's 100% safe to say that Hollywood won't be back and they won't really miss him. They're going to replace him with a Marvin Harrison or a Odunze or a Neighbors, and it'll be electric. And Kyler is going to be electric with those players. So I'm very optimistic about the Cardinals. I think you kind of let those two top guys walk, and you kind of just replace them in the draft. You got two other starters, LJ Collier and Antonio Hamilton. You could, bring them back on cheap deals, good rotational players. But other than that, anything else you want to talk about the Cardinals?
Yeah, I'll just give, we'll address way more into this in previous episodes. But yeah, if I'm the Cardinals, and yeah, I'm letting both these guys walk. At this point, we're looking, all eyes are on Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 4 going to the draft. But before that, obviously this is a free agency episode. You got guys on the lines of Leonard Williams, Daniil Hunter, Carl Lawson, Randy Gregory. You got to, I mean, Yannick Ngakoue, Chase Young. I mean, if I was them, I'd probably be pretty aggressive in the Chase Young. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are, potential trade targets. The Cardinals have plenty of cap space to bring, a big time edge defender. And so that's kind of where I'm focusing my free agency for the Cardinals is edge, edge, edge. We need some pass rushers.
Yeah, I like that. And I mean, just focusing on defense in general, that's Gannon's strong suit. So you just focus on his strong suit, let him develop them. And yeah, with that, let's move on to the Falcons here. It's another team with kind of not too much to talk about in the free agency aspect, at least. We will need to talk about who their new quarterback will be for Zach Robinson and our blanking, Raheem Morris, sorry. But I mean, let's just start it out with this because there's not really any phrases to talk about. So who is going to be the Falcons quarterback? The heavy rumor and favorite is Justin Fields, and everyone's kind of locked that in. The more I think about it, like the more I don't know how he fits in a Zach Robinson, McVay offense. If I really think about it, and it would be fun him going back to Atlanta to his hometown. He's the heavy favorite to be the Falcons' new quarterback. But I mean, I don't know. Who do you think it's going to be?
It's really tough. I mean, because of right now, like the odds for where Justin Fields, I mean, everyone's kind of like weirdly locked him into the Falcons, and it just kind of seems like that's been a thing in the last couple of weeks. But all of a sudden now I don't know if you checked today, but the odds for Justin Fields have now heavily favored the Steelers at minus 125. So there's definitely, because it's a very weak quarterback free agency class. There's just not a lot. But yeah, the Falcons, I mean, first and foremost, they have a very talented offense. They have a very young team. These are young coaches. It's going to be very exciting. They're going to be able to build a good team. And right now with their cap situation, they're at 28 or 29 million. So they have a little bit of room. They have a little bit of room to finagle and make some moves. But yeah, it's hard because if the Patriots don't ultimately end up going Jaden Daniels, that would probably be best case scenario. You take Zach Robinson and a young quarterback and really get to develop them, in Atlanta. But I mean, if I'm, going off of potential free agency fits, I mean, it's a weak pool for quarterbacks. I mean, you got Kirk Cousins, who likely will resign with the Vikings, in my opinion, on a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal. Ryan Tannehill, Jacoby Brissett, Mitchell Trubisky, Tyrod Taylor, Marcus Mariota, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Baker Mayfield, who I don't think there's any possible chance that Tampa Bay lets him walk. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe Falcons, you're looking at a 1-year rental with like Jacoby Brissett and you wait for next year's quarterback class. I don't know. It's a very tough, sticky situation.
It is hard. I would say Kirk Cousins is down to two teams. It's the Falcons or Vikings. To me, we'll get to it, but I am leaning Vikings for Kirk. It would be perfect. I think Zach Robinson and Kirk is like a perfect marriage. They would be contenders in the NFC. They'd be scary. I hope it happens, but I'm just getting all the vibes that Kirk wants to say. With the Vikings, we'll get to that with the Vikings. But yeah, with the Falcons, it is hard to set a quarterback for them. We'll have a quarterback carousel episode coming out soon. But yeah, I think Jaden Daniels is the dream option, like you said, highest upside option. So love that. Well, let's get into their top two free agents. I would say it's Okudah and Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell, he's old, but he had a good season last year. You definitely, wouldn't mind to re-sign him. But I think you let him walk because paying a 37-year-old does seem a little bit careless, unless you're like a real contender. And then Okudah, it's kind of the opposite. He's 25. He's got upside. He was decent last year. I guess that's kind of the real conversation. Are you bringing back Okudah for the upside? I'm sure someone will pay him.
Yeah, I think you can honestly get Jeff Okudah, and that would be my, in-house number one free agency signing would be to bring back Jeff Okudah. You got a good thing going with AJ Terrell. The more depth at corner, the better. And he's still young, and I still feel like Jeff Okudah is still on the rise. So yes, I would of course re-sign Jeff Okudah if I was the Falcons. And yeah, Calais Campbell, who's 37, gonna be 38 years old next year. That's a no-go for me. I couldn't quite justify paying him. Again, that seems, very reckless for a team that's, not quite at that step, who really doesn't even have a quarterback yet. But yeah, that would be my take on their top two free agents.
And something kind of comical. I'm happy we did this exercise single-handedly for this is don't sleep on receiver as a need for the Falcons. You've got Drake London, And then every other receiver on your roster is a free agent. Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, Daryl Hodge, and Mac Hollins are all free agents. So they literally need to draft receiver in the draft. So definitely look for the Falcons to take one early in the first, 2 days of the draft. That'll be something fun. But yeah, other than that, Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, you do probably let walk because of the age, and you bring in some youth with Raheem Morris.
Yeah, and I think Falcons also another glaring need is edge. Obviously, with Calais Campbell, 37 years old, Bud Dupree, I think you really need a focus edge, whether that's draft or free agency. There's just not, there's really not a lot of high end edges. I think obviously, there's going to be cap casualties for teams, so that will open up free agency for teams like the Falcons. I mean, I don't know, maybe a Kyle Van Noy, Jadeveon Clowney type would be, good. Kyle Van Noy would be a 1 year rental. Jadeveon Clowney, you probably have enough cap room to sign him to a multi-year deal. That would be a good, cornerstone for your defense. But yeah, I think people they have a really incredible offense with really, with key pieces in Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and you got some key, offensive linemen. But yeah, you said it though. There's receiver is a big need after Drake London because there's literally no one.
Yeah, the Falcons do have some needs, but it'll be a fun offseason. You've got a good staff in there, and yeah, I'm pretty positive they're going to be a good team next year. You want to go into the Ravens.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, speaking of teams with a lot of moves to make this offseason, the Ravens are definitely one of them. A lot of big name free agents and a lot of departures. I would say the Ravens so far in 2024 are the team with, the most departures, maybe the most hurtful departures, like, Mike McDonald, just their entire coaching staff, defensively at least, an assistant GM. They've lost a lot this offseason. So you will need to kind of go back to the well and replenish things. And I guess we'll start it off with free agency. You've got some names in here for sure. You've got Justin Madubuike, who's like a top 10, top 15 free agent in the whole class, one of the maybe the best interior defensive lineman in this class outside of Chris Jones in this free agent class. So Justin Madubuike is going to be very sought after. He's going to get paid. I could see Mike McDonald in Seattle just throwing a bag at him. So totally it's going to be hard to retain Justin Madubuike. Let's just say that. And if you do, it's going to cost a lot of money. And then Patrick Queen, another guy who's honestly going to be hard to retain with how good he played this year. Next to Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen will fetch a pretty penny. You're going to have to pay up there as well. I would say you probably keep one, and you're going to have to let the other one walk. So I'm going to have to ask you a hard question here in a second. Who are you choosing out of Madubuike and Patrick Queen? But I mean, you've also got like Jadeveon Clowney, who had a great season, who you would love to bring back. You might not be able to bring back a 31-year-old, but that is a Ravens thing to do. I wouldn't mind that. You've got, more veterans like Odell, but who are you prioritizing here? Because there's a lot of like J.K. Dobbins is there. Like there's a lot of players.
Even Geno Stone, been a
Had a
stud
great
safety.
season this year.
Is-
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's good. He's going to require a hefty amount of money, and right now the Ravens are looking about they're still about $1 million over the cap. So there's not a lot of finagle room for them as of right now. We'll have to see what they ultimately end up doing, to get under the cap. But yeah, this is really tough. I mean, this is a team with a lot of free agents. And I mean, again, this is like kind of like the Falcons. Outside of Zay Flowers now, you don't have much at receiver. You really don't have any receivers. But if I'm looking at these free agents, I think Justin Madubuike is going to get priced out. I do. I think he had too good of a season. Um, somebody's gonna give him the bag, and the Ravens aren't gonna be able to compete, which is great for the Ravens because they'll get a nice comp pick. They'll probably get a third round comp pick for him. Jadeveon Clowney, I think with his age, I think a team like the Falcons, could use him as a few-year rental. But yeah, I think my two top priorities for these guys are Patrick Queen and Geno Stone, and the Ravens are a team that likes to build from the linebackers out. And you saw what Roquan Smith did. I don't think you mess with that, that safety and that linebacker room. I think you keep that intact. The Ravens have shown to, be competent in drafting late round defensive tackles and edges and making them productive starters. But yeah, my focus is on Patrick Queen and Geno Stone right now.
I fully 100% agree with that. I could see like if I'm just talking about what I see happening, what I think the Ravens will do. I think they do re-sign Geno Stone. I think that has to be a priority. He'll probably want to come back and start at free safety for them. But man, like it's almost there's so many veterans. It's like hard to impossible to predict who they're going to bring back. I don't think they bring back Odell. Um, Madubuike, I feel like he has to be the priority because he's the youngest, but also he might
He's
be
just
the hardest.
he's just gonna get such a bag. That's
He's
the
going
thing.
to get so much.
Yeah, I could see a team like the Bears, or the Cardinals or the Commanders who just have so much money giving this guy, like 18 plus $1 million a year, which I just don't know if the Ravens, and I full heartedly agree. I just don't know if the Ravens are going to be able to compete with his free agency market.
Yeah, this is honestly tough because I mean Patrick Queen you would love to bring back, but you already you had to pay Roquan. You want to pay two high tier linebackers. It's really tough. Like to give an analysis for the Ravens. It's mostly just going to be interesting to see what they do. Like in the draft, they're probably just going to go best player available, like they always do. So yeah, I mean, any other analysis do you want to give? I mean, any cuts that we can think of for the Ravens since they're kind of close to that cap, or
Oh gosh, I just don't know if there's a lot of people that make sense to cut right now. I do, and off the top of my head, but I do want to say if they address something in free agency, I could see, like a Kendrick Bourne type of receiver, McCole Hardman, a Darnell Mooney type receiver to come and complement Zay Flowers, or even like a Noah Brown, a real good possession type receiver. But yeah, that's kind of what I think from that side of guys who are kind of under the radar, who they could sign, maybe even like a Paris Campbell. But gosh, I guess if I pull up their roster, I don't know if there's anyone on like an expiring deal. But yeah, they do got to get under the cap. I mean, I don't know if they can adjust Lamar's contract a little bit.
yeah, just looking at their roster, the really only cut candidates I can think of are like a Michael Pierce maybe, but yeah, there aren't really too big of cut candidates. Yeah, Rashad Bateman, but yeah, I do like you pointing out receiver though. I think they do bring in a veteran receiver. That just feels like a Ravens thing to do this offseason. They're gonna bring in one of those receivers you mentioned. So I like that. But with that, do you want to move on to the Bills or anything else?
Yeah, let's move on to the Bills.
All right. Going to the Buffalo Bills, definitely a team that will have a lot of turnover this offseason. You can start it off with the discussion of drama king Stephon Diggs. What's going to happen with him? He completely fell off the face of the earth the second half of the season. Didn't even look like a starting receiver. You've also got your other receiver, Gabe Davis, who is a free agent. So you will have to do some finagling at that receiver position, kind of figure out what should be done. I'll tell you what I think should be done is you trade Diggs and you let Davis walk and you just get receivers that you think Josh Allen the alien can throw to and can help him. Like if you get a Troy Franklin, a true deep threat in the first round for him, if you get a Keon Coleman, a big guy that can be a game changer for you. I like a lot more options than a Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis pairing at this point. I think the Bills need to change it up. They really do. They're close, but they're not there at all. They aren't there. I feel like they have a cap ceiling right now, and it's like close, but it's just not there. So I feel like they just need to change a lot of things up. Even a mini rebuild would be good at this point. But yeah, I mean, looking at their free agents, I would let Micah Hyde walk. I think I'd let
Well,
every
I'll
single
tell you
free agent
one thing,
walk.
Dan. They are the second highest cap team in the NFL. They are $51 million, almost $52 million over the cap. So, yeah, I don't know if there's going to be much resigning. I mean, it's going to be a lot of under the radar guys. It might be time to hit that. I mean, because whatever they're doing, it's not working. I think you shop Stephon Diggs. I think you move on from Gabe Davis. I think it is time to do a mini rebuild, a competitive rebuild with Josh Allen. And, I think you start getting a little bit, you try and find these undrafted guys. You go out here, you get these low contract guys with, possibly high ceilings. But yeah, you gotta move some money off the books. And I think you start that with Stephon Diggs.
We'll start that with Von Miller. We'll get our backup edge rusher out of here for the $60 million that will clear or whatever. But yeah, Von Miller and Stephon Diggs, two former stars that they honestly just need to be gone. They were good here for a little bit, but they just need to get gone, and it needs to be a new era. It'll clear up a lot of space. I mean, Jordan Poyer could be a a cut candidate, even like a Trey White, uh, any of their offensive linemen. I feel like there definitely will be some cuts. There will be some trades. I think the Bills will have a lot of turnover, bring in a lot of draft picks, and that's the right move because they're not one of these free agents. I'm going to tell them to. I would even like none of these big free agents. At least I would never tell them to resign. There's a few small names that would be great depth pieces, but like no one that I'm banging the table for at all.
Yeah, we scroll down a little bit. I mean, like if you can, it depending on Taylor Rapp's market, AJ Epinesa, those are kind of the two that come to mind.
Yeah, like good rotational players, but like those will
Yeah.
just be like minimum cheap contracts you can get in the second or third wave.
And that's kind of what you're looking for. I mean, you're just trying to you're trying to sign your team friendly guys, the meat and potatoes of your roster. And yeah, you need to move off. I mean, because I mean, look at this. I mean, Mike Hyde, 33, Daquan Jones, 32, Leonard Floyd, 31, Tim Settle. Well, Tim Settle's younger, but Jordan Phillips, 31. It's a lot of old aging veterans. Latavius Murray, obviously, you don't resign any of these guys. You get Taylor Rapp, AJ Epinesa, your depth guys, team friendly deals. And you look for low key free agent signings. You try and go find the value. As a former Chargers fan, who our GM was Tom Telesco, we call him Coupon Tom. You wait till that second, third wave of free agency, and you find the value. You don't go. You're not bidding on free agents at the beginning of free agency in that first wave. You're not even considering anyone in a big tier name.
Yeah, I mean, really looking at this more, I'd bring back two free agents on cheap deals. David Edwards, who did finish the season strong. You need offensive line help. I'd bring him back, and I'd bring back Tim Settle because you need defensive line help. He's the youngest, so I'd bring back those two. And with that, let's move on to the Carolina Panthers. You bring
Yes, we
in
got a lot of teams to go through. We're going through everyone, baby.
yeah, we got 32 teams. We might need to speed it up a little bit, but yeah, you got Dave Canales' Carolina Panthers, and it's mainly one guy we're going to discuss here, and that is Brian Burns, who's kind of been in trade discussions the last few years around the trade deadline time, and I mean he's just a stud edge rusher. I would say he's a top five free agent in this class, top three edge rusher, right there with Daniil Hunter, Josh Allen, absolute stud. Could see like the Rams or the Rams have been interested in trading for him. I could see someone like that snagging him if the Panthers can retain him. Obviously, it would be smart. I don't know. Would it be smart for a team in a true rebuild? He is 26. I don't know. I don't even know if it would be smart, but he is such a good player. Evero is such a good coach. I wouldn't mind bringing him back at all. Kind of just depends on what they want to do. But if he walks, it's not a big deal. You can throw darts at edge rusher in the draft. And yeah, anyone else that really stands out to you? What do you do with Brian Burns?
Oh gosh. To be honest with you, we need a cornerstone piece. I mean, right now, Carolina Panthers are 13th in cap space with 31 million. I think you can move some guys. Maybe I know Adam Thielen was a stud, but at his age, receivers tend to decline. I think you kind of need to revamp that room, and you try and create as much cap space as you can. But yeah, I think Brian Burns, honestly, I think he's a cornerstone piece. He's one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. He's at a prime age. I think you do resign him. I think I'd want to resign CJ Henderson. I don't think he's going to cost a lot. Jeremy Chin, also a guy that's probably going to not, cost the bag. And then yeah, and I think if I'm the Panthers, I'm going to be aggressive in free agency, to be honest with you. I mean, if they can't resign Brian Burns, I'll look at a guy like Chase Young. I'll entertain trades, for late round picks for a guy, like a Joey Bosa. So I'll if I'm the Panthers, I'm definitely entertaining all that stuff. But yeah, I do think Brian Burns, it would be your best bet to of course keep him as that cornerstone on the defense. And then, you got to get a big time receiver. Obviously the free agency class is not super friendly for wide receivers right now. I mean, you're looking at your top guy, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr., Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd, Cedric Wilson, Kendrick Bourne. I don't know if I'm going to throw the bag at any of these guys. I think I might honestly just be looking at the draft. I mean, if I'm them, maybe I throw a dart at a Hollywood Brown, maybe a Noah Brown. I get rid of Adam Thielen, and I look to if I'm the Panthers too. I look to trade up in the draft. I look to go get an AD Mitchell if available, a Keon Coleman. One of these guys that is an elite receiver because damn, these guys need help at wide receiver.
Yeah, they could be one of the teams that are in the Cortland Sutton or Jerry Judy sweepstakes as well, trade candidate receivers. And I think,
Mike
yeah,
Williams is, yeah, I mean, Mike Williams is going to be a cut candidate for the Chargers. Obviously, they will look for trade candidates. I bet if they would get a seventh round pick, which the Panthers would be very smart to throw a seventh round pick at him. Maybe, he's got a super high cap hit right now. You maybe restructure his contract, extend him for a few years, and that would be a real key cornerstone piece for a guy like Bryce Young if Mike Williams could stay healthy.
yeah, really just any weapons is what the Cardinal or what Carolina ultimately needs. And then I would say corner as well as a big need. You have a lot of free agents at that corner position. Troy Hill, Jeremy Chin is kind of playing nickel, CJ Henderson, and Shaq Griffin. So a lot of corners. You definitely, I mean, Dante Jackson, another cut candidate as well. I would say he probably does get cut. It's probably looking likely. He's always another guy that's popular at the trade deadline. And so it seems like corner is just going to be a huge need for the Panthers. They're going to bring in a few. And with that, let's go on to the next team, the Chicago Bears, who have the
I
first.
just have to say something. I feel bad for the Panthers, and it's just a tough situation right now.
Oh,
They're in a few year rebuild minimum. What they did to give up to get Bryce Young, we'll see if it's worth it in the end. But man, they gave up a lot, and this year's first round pick. So, and last year, yeah, they gave an absolute hole for him. So I mean, I'm not out on Bryce Young, but man, they gave they gave a lot, and giving DJ Moore was absolutely brutal too.
yeah, definitely rough stuff. But for the Bears, we'll move on to the team with the first overall pick. You're going to bring in Caleb Williams, so we'll plan around that. We'll use that vision, and you're going to keep Eberflus in there as the head coach, and the biggest free agency is obviously the biggest free agent is obviously Jalen Johnson, the top corner free agent in this class. Literally the best corner in the NFL last year. He's absolute stud, shut down. Only turning 25 this year. He's going to be very sought after, but the Bears have the second most cap space, and I'm pretty positive that that's their priority. They bring him right back, and yeah, I think. Sorry, they don't have the second most cap space.
Seventh.
Seventh, but still a lot. They have.
And well, when Justin Fields has moved off the books too, I think he's going to be 10, $15 million of it. And then they get a rookie quarterback on a rookie quarterback deal for the next. Chicago's in a good Chicago opposite of of the Panthers are in a really good situation with money and draft capital. Ryan Poles has done a fantastic job. Just have to shout that out. Their future is very bright.
Beautiful stuff. A lot of assets, and then your other main free agent is Darnell Mooney. You're letting him walk. I'm 100% positive he will be walking. Deontay Foreman, they'll probably let walk. I think Roshan Johnson had a good rookie season. Yeah, Yannick Ngakoue is going to walk as well. There's no way they bring him back. So yeah, I really think it's just Jalen Johnson. Attack like younger players like maybe St. Brown to just keep as a locker room guy, but that's about it here.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys that you can get on team friendly deals. Obviously your D line is probably your weakest spot. Bringing in Montez Sweat, I think, was actually really, really good, and they locked him down to a big contract, and he played fantastic at the end of the year. Justin Jones, defensive tackle, he's 27 years old. I think they'd be able to resign him for a decent. He's a good rotational depth player. Darnell Mooney just hasn't really clicked in this offense. I think they ultimately will move off of him. And yeah, Jalen Johnson, you write that guy a blank check. He's your best corner. He's one of the best corners in the NFL. He's 24 years old. The future is bright with him. But yeah, this Bears team is in a really good spot for free agency and the draft. And they're a team that could be super competitive next year.
All right, and with that, let's get on to a super fun team, super fun discussion. The team with I would say easily the most big name free agents, the most kind of decisions to make, and it's going to be fun. I'm very excited to see what they do. I'm just going to read off the kind of big guys, and I'm going to ask you how you would prioritize them. You got DJ Reader, one of the top interior defensive linemen, Tyler Boyd, a really good slot receiver, Chidobe Awuzie, a really good outside starting corner, Jonah Williams, been a solid right tackle at Alabama, T. Higgins, a stud alpha outside wide receiver 2, the best wide receiver 2 probably in the NFL. Yeah, so just insane stuff. How are you prioritizing those studs?
Well, I'm just gonna get into. I had no idea Cincinnati still has somehow sixth most cap space, which is very surprising for a team that's competitive. It was competitive with Jake Browning at quarterback, $61 million. So yeah, first and foremost, which we've heard rumors of. Yeah, I think you franchise T Higgins, and I think you lock him down to a multi-year deal. I think that'd just be reckless. He's definitely your best free agent right now. I think you can address everything else. Via the draft or, sign cheaper veteran minimum type deals. But yeah, first and foremost, we're franchising T. Higgins. We're not letting him go anywhere. He will get a bag if he goes somewhere else. But you use that franchise tag and you don't even give him the option to go anywhere. But yeah, Jonah Williams, I don't know. I think you might address tackle in the draft. I think you get something a little bit more set in stone to build for the future. I think you let Jonah Williams walk. DJ Reader's been fantastic. I think he's going to require quite a bit of money. Apparently, they can afford it, which I'm just finding out now. So yeah, they could resign DJ Reader. He is 29 years old. He's probably on the worst half of the getting up there on 30. So depending on how they picture his future to look as he's aging, he would probably not be a bad idea to bring back to a 1-2 year deal. Tyler Boyd is expected to test the free agency market. I ultimately think he probably does leave. I think I could see him going to like a Cardinals or somebody that could use a vet in that room. And then I would resign Chidobe Awuzie. I think that should be a priority for them too.
Yeah, I think you might have to choose between a Awuzie and Reader, but yeah, like you said, they do have a lot of money, so you could ultimately franchise tag Higgins and then bring back Awuzie and Reader. I like that, and I think that's kind of just the vision that should be the plan. Anything else on the Bengals?
No, we gotta start moving. We're how many 5, 6 teams in? We're already half hour in. But yeah, we better start moving. At a little faster than the snail's pace, if unless we're gonna be here all night.
Yeah, too much yapping. We'll go on to the Browns here, and you bring back the comeback player of the year. First of all, we'll get that out of the way. You bring back the perfect backup quarterback, Joe Flacco. That's obvious. I feel like he'll want to come back on a somewhat reasonable deal. And then the rest of the players for the Browns, it's really kind of just a discussion of like Zadarius Smith, Shelby Harris, two veterans. I think Zadarius Smith, if he asks, he's probably going to ask for too much. Let's be real. He's Zadarius Smith, so I think I'd bring back Shelby Harris on another like cheap deal, and like the second or third wave once no one really offers him. But other than that, I'm not really worried about any of these free agents coming back at all. Are you?
No, I mean, gosh, Nick Harris is this as depth is not bad. But yeah, I mean the Cleveland Browns right now are $20 million over the cap. So yeah, I don't really see any glaring needs to resign any of these guys. I think they'll. I mean, yeah, Joe Flacco, probably your best quarterback. Um, what do you think they ultimately? I'm sorry. What do you think they ultimately end up doing with Deshaun Watson? I mean, is
You have to you
I
would
mean,
bet
he's guaranteed. They gave him a guaranteed contract, so they're kind of in jail with him. So
literally.
to speak. But yeah, I guess they can't really do anything about that. But yeah, I think you do bring back Joe Flacco. Sean Watson has not shown any kind of reliability at all. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there's no pressing needs on this team to resign. Honestly,
It's
as
just the four players on defense. Like it's the two players I stated, Smith and Harris, and then there's the two linebackers, Taki, and Anthony Walker. Bring one of them back, whoever you like more, probably Taki, and then that's probably it.
yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, and then figure out whoever the cap casualties are. You got to probably move off of. You obviously got to move off of a couple players, but yeah, there's no pressing needs. Taki, you can probably get a very cheap deal, so yeah, he's probably worth it to bring back.
Yeah, such a good roster. You're not really worried about bringing these guys back. You just replenish through the draft like they always really have recently. So with that, let's move on to the Cowboys. Interesting team with a really good legendary offensive lineman up for free agency. The Tony Pollard discussion is interesting. I think there's really no realistic way that they bring back a Tony Pollard after the year that he had. I feel like he kind of proved he isn't a real workhorse bell cow running back, and you definitely could go really any other route for the same production and cheaper. So I'm pretty positive Pollard walks. I think the the biggest question here is, do they let Tyron Smith ultimately walk? You drafted Tyler Smith to kind of be his old eventual replacement. The Cowboys have been, loading up on offensive linemen. I could see them letting him walk and him signing with like a Chiefs or something. But I mean, it would be smart to bring him back as well. What do you think with these guys?
Yeah, Tyron Smith is old, expensive. The Cowboys right now, 26th in cap, $14 million over. Yeah, no, gosh, I think Jaron Curse. I think I would prioritize him and Jordan Lewis. Honestly, I think those would be the two guys I'd want to bring back. Tyler Biazdas, not bad, but yeah, I think I'm prioritizing bringing back Jaron Curse and Jordan Lewis. I'm moving off of Tyron Smith. They've shown the ability to draft linemen. They have an incredible line. And then honestly, for the Cowboys, if I'm going running back, I'm looking for like a J.K. Dobbins. I'm looking for something cheap like that. And, most running backs, I think a bigger guy like J.K. Dobbins, even Gus Edwards, I don't know why I'm thinking of Ravens running backs, but I think both of those guys would fit the Dallas Cowboys scheme, running style very well. And that's kind of who I'd prioritize. And
Yeah,
then look, maybe like Unamarius Mims, if he falls to the Cowboys in the draft, I think that would be awesome to, replace Tyrone Smith.
like a Jonathan Brooks in the draft, keep him in Dallas. He'd be an electric Pollard replacement. But yeah, the Cowboys don't have too much. Biadasz would be a good, a good player to bring back. He's a solid center
I
for
don't
them.
I don't know why I said Biaz. I looked at his name and my Biadasz. Sorry, excuse me for my word mumbling.
Biazdas. But no, we'll go on to my Denver Broncos here. We'll talk about them very shortly because they had the most expensive spending spree in free agency history last offseason. So they're gonna have that Saints effect this offseason where they're not able to sign anyone the first wave of free agency. They're gonna be pretty quiet with their re-signings and extensions as well. So I mean, going to the
I'll
Broncos.
let you take the floor because this is your area.
I would say my cut candidates are the obvious Tim Patrick. You free up 10 million and you just bring him back for like a cheap $2 million deal. I think that's ultimately what's going to happen with him. I think Sutton probably is the one that gets traded over Judy. I just think that Sutton has more value currently, and they would just want to capitalize off that. He is older than Judy. I think Sean Payton would like to utilize Judy. I feel like Sean Payton's confident in his system. So I do think that's how kind of the cuts go. And then you've got two free agents ultimately. It's Josie Jewell and Lloyd Cushenberry. Josie Jewell, you 100% let walk. You drafted Drew Sanders to be his replacement last year. You can draft another linebacker this year. And then Lloyd Cushenberry is the discussion here. You can give me your input on this as well. I personally, I mean, Lloyd Cushenberry had a fantastic season last year, one of the better centers, one of the more improved players in the NFL. But I think he might have priced himself out of Denver. I personally just feel like you had a really solid offensive line. You can just get that last spot in the draft. You can draft a good center interior offensive lineman to fill in for him. And we have a good Zach Strief is a good offensive line coach. So I'm not really too worried about Lloyd Cushenberry if he does walk. But I mean, he is 26. He's a really, really top tier center. So he's going to be good for someone. I really just don't think the Broncos can even afford to bring him back though. So
What is the Russell Wilson cut or trade? Um, what would that save you? Do you have any idea off the top of your head? Because you guys
oh,
are 25
it,
million over. So what does that take you? I mean, it's a big, I know he's got a big cap hit, but what does it ultimately save you?
it doesn't. Cutting Russell Wilson will never save us anything. Nothing. Nothing.
Oh, so it's just going to be a shit ton of dead money, essentially.
Like 48 million. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oof.
Like the most ever. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. That's got to be a record, but obviously the Broncos are moving off. I think they'll address that position in the draft, whether it's day one or day two. I think they ultimately take his successor pretty early. But yeah, I'm resigning Will Lutz, obviously. But yeah, with Lloyd Cushenberry, I don't know. I guess it depends really what his value. I mean, it's not a great free agency. For centers, there's not a lot of good ones out there. So Lloyd Cushenberry could, get a pretty decent sized contract. And yeah, if I'm the Broncos, I'd probably just trust our ability to draft a late round center like a Drake Nugent, mid round guy like Cedric Van Pran. somebody who could eventually turn into, eventually your Lloyd Cushenberry, and you probably get a comp pick for Lloyd Cushenberry too, which is pretty good. So yeah, ultimately I'd probably let him walk. He probably price himself out of the market, and then I'd just like a Drake Nugent in like the 5th or 6th round from Michigan would be like an ideal scenario.
And then tell me what you ideally think the Broncos should do with with quarterback. What do you think Sean Payton will want to do slash should do?
I'm getting really high on Mr. JJ McCarthy from Michigan. I think he is going to be, I think come the combine, come his pro day, come his interviews, his draft value is going to absolutely rise. And I think the Broncos are right at the sweet spot at number 12 in the draft. And so right now, I'm looking to get like JJ McCarthy, a very young, coachable kid who's very athletic, who Sean Payton needs to put his hands all over. I don't think Sean Payton likes a veteran. I think Sean Payton wants to get a rookie that he can develop and he can, mold into his own quarterback. So right in the range where the Broncos are at, unless you can pull off some immaculate trade. I don't know if you have the value or you'd want to do that, but I'm looking JJ McCarthy right now, and I think that would be fantastic. If you don't get JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, 2nd round, you have to.
Yeah, if you can't trade up for one of the top guys, I agree that McCarthy will end up being Sean's guy, the most moldable and high upside guy. So yeah, I like that possibility for the Broncos. And with that, let's get on to the Lions. Really not too much to talk about the Lions. It's just really Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who I mean, I'll just say he's gonna walk. I'm almost positive they let him walk. He, talks a lot for not really being the greatest on the field. At least this year, he definitely wasn't great. Against the Niners in the playoffs, he kind of was someone that they attacked, and he just missed every single tackle. So I would say Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's 100% leaving. That secondary was a complete mess. I would just say it was a miss of a signing. You got kind of just a lot of veterans here. You got Teddy Bridgewater, who's already retired, and he's a high school football coach. So good for Teddy. I think the two guys that you do bring back here, Josh Reynolds and Graham Glasgow. Glasgow's been a Detroit player for a while. You bring him back. He was a really good starter for you this year. And then Josh Reynolds, Goff just loves the guy. I don't want to bring him back as my wide receiver 2, but I do want to bring him back just for the Goff connection as like a wide receiver 4. I think he's perfect in that role. What he used to be with the Rams.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you just hit the nail on the head with exactly who I'd bring back as well. Yeah, I think Chauncey Gardner Johnson, he didn't play to his contract by any means. But if I am the Detroit Lions, I am going to hit free agency hard. I am going to look for guys like Adoree Jackson, Kendall Fuller, um, you know, Kenny Moore. They're kind of a win now team. I think a Kenny Moore would come into that locker room, a really good culture guy. He would be fantastic. Jordan Lewis, CJ Henderson, Steven Nelson, Keyshawn Nixon, just guys. You got to get corners in that room. That was your biggest weakness. Teams could throw all over you, and so you really attack. That DB room, and you build. You're probably in the range. To get a receiver in the draft. I could see like a Roman Wilson fit into that system really well. Being like the number 2, you got to get a number 2 to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's not Josh Reynolds. But yeah, like a Roman Wilson in the draft, and then I think you really attack secondary and free agency, and then given how your free agency goes with DB, you look at the draft and what you need to do from there.
Yep. Lions have the 8th most cap space. So I can promise you, they're honestly going to be one of the bigger buyers. Like if Chris Jones did become available, I think the Lions might become like his biggest suitor. Like I think they might be just, the biggest splash just team this offseason. So I really am excited for them this offseason. And you ready to get onto the Packers or anything else?
Yeah, well, and my gosh, I blanked. Chiefs corner. Oh, L'Jarius Sneed. Whether he hits the free agency or if the Chiefs don't franchise tag him, yeah, the Lions, they have $48 million to work with. L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, you go get guys to win now. I mean, the Lions are in a win now. You have Ben Johnson probably for his last year. I would think this is their all-in year. So I think they go attack free agency hard. You go spend big. You go get some difference makers. Hell, I'm going to say this for every team. Hit me up with, if I'm the Chargers, let's go trade Joey Bosa. Let's give him Khalil Mack. You got the money. Pair him on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. Let's get after the quarterback. Let's go win a Super Bowl, Lions. Hit the Chargers phones. We got players to give you.
Yeah, they will be going all in. So super exciting for the Lions. And we'll go on to their division rival, Packers. And we're really just going to be discussing secondary here. I would say secondary is really their weak point. This young roster is honestly built really well. You know, they're better off than you would think for being the youngest roster in the NFL. They really are just built well. Great job by Gutekunst. And I guess the discussion really is just kind of Keyshawn Nixon, Darnell Savage. Keyshawn Nixon, in my opinion, is just an overrated slot corner. I think he's a fine slot corner, but he's being talked about like he's going to be like a top slot corner and he's going to get paid like that. So I'm not really paying Keyshawn Nixon what he's going to get. I think he's not even like a top half slot corner in the NFL, but I mean he's a fine player, good special, great returner. So can't fault you for bringing him in. He's electric. Darnell Savage feels like the Packers are going to let him go. They benched him last year. He was in trade discussions. He ultimately ended up finishing the season well, but there are the vibes that Savage will be walking. It feels like Nixon will be walking. Jonathan Ford, the other secondary guy, Simone Biles' husband, because no one knows who Jonathan Ford is. I do think they'll bring
Jonathan Owens.
Jonathan Jonathan Owens. That's how literally irrelevant he is. But yeah, I do think they bring him in as a good backup safety and special teamer, and that's about it.
Yeah, Jonathan Owens, key special teamer, really good depth piece to have. Yeah, but I mean, the Packers right now are sitting at $350,000 in cap space, but their key starters, their key players are all already under contract. Um, so you let Keyshawn Nixon, you let Darnell Savage walk, they'll probably get okay contracts. It'll probably generate you a fifth, sixth round comp pick for those guys, and you keep building and making your team younger through the draft. In my opinion, for the Packers, and I don't know if there's any cap. David Bakhtiari, probably a cap casualty at
He's a
this.
jet. He's a
Yeah,
jet.
yeah. David Bakhtiari, definitely a cap casualty at this point. That's probably gonna get you quite a bit of money off the books. And then yeah, I mean, you resign your Jonathan Owens, you're just your underrated guys, your key depth pieces, and then you really just build through the draft, and that's really it for the Packers.
Yeah,
In a very, very good spot.
Yosh Neiman, probably the one of the better swing tackles, 6-man tackles in the NFL. So you'd love to bring him back. AJ Dillon will be walking, could see him being like a Ram or someone. But with that, let's go on to another really exciting young team, the Houston Texans. And this is kind of an interesting discussion because the Texans have been throwing, kind of 1 year dart deals at a lot of players, and they kind of all hit. They threw a lot of darts at these like veteran type players, and they all played really good football for them last year. So it will be hard to decipher what ones to bring back. You literally look at all their ages; they're all getting up
Oh,
there to their 30s. It's crazy the amount of just 1 year deals they threw out, and mostly all of these guys performed really well. I could list off 10 of these guys if I wanted to, but kind of the main guys that stand out to me is someone you really want to bring back. Oh, there's also Jonathan Grenner, who's kind of like Texans fans' favorite player, and someone that I'm sure D'Amico Ryans would love to bring back. He might be the most sought after Texan, so you might not be able to bring him back. But I mean, you've got some names like, I mean, you bring, I don't know, Dalton Schultz. I feel like Dalton Schultz was awesome with Stroud. He's a perfect security blanket. I don't really think you make tight end a need. I think you just bring him back for another cheap deal. But I don't know. What are you feeling with this free agency?
yeah, they took some big swings and they hit a lot last year, and it was brilliant. And they'll probably do the same thing. But yeah, if I'm ultimately looking at their roster, Jonathan Grenard, obviously probably the number one option. If you can retain him, fantastic. You keep him on the other side of Will Anderson. You keep that going. Dalton Schultz, he signed a 1 year, $10 million deal. I thought he kind of lived up to it. $10 million is a lot for Dalton Schultz. I don't feel like he was outstanding, but he was very solid. If you could get him on a 2 year, $14 million deal, I feel like that would be a lot better. So I would be looking at Dalton Schultz. Steven Nelson is getting up there in age. He played very well for his contract. Depending on what his value is next year, if it's a 1 year, $1 million deal, I really like that. And then was Denzel Perryman a free
Yep.
agent? I believe
Yep.
he was. Yeah, I would look to resign him. I think he'd be on a pretty cheap vet deal. And he's just a very, very solid piece for the middle of that defense. I know he is 31, but I think you could have him on another 1 year rental.
Yeah, I'm letting Rankins walk. I think I'd try to bring back Tart. I like him. He's a younger interior defensive lineman. Noah Brown will be walking, going up
Yeah,
there.
Texans have a ton of money. They're 60, they're fifth in cap space with 65 million. So anyone they want to keep, they can.
Yeah, a lot to play around with. And like the Lions, I think they're going to be one of the splashier teams this offseason, making, the splashier big money moves. So I'm sure you'll see them getting one of these big name guys. And with that, let's go on to their division rival, the Indianapolis Colts. And the Colts are interesting because they always have so much cap space, but they like to kind of roll that cap space over to the next offseason. So you can't really predict them to be big spenders or anything. I think they'll kind of re-sign one player in here, maybe two, and then kind of just be the same old Colts like Ballard likes doing. So I don't know if I had to pick one guy here that seems like a lock to stay a Colt. It has to be Michael Pittman. It doesn't even feel like he would leave. It doesn't feel like they would let him leave. It just seems like the fit, the pairing is just a good marriage. I don't even know if Pittman would be as good as he is elsewhere than he is on the Colts. So I just feel like Pittman will be back for sure. You got to get Anthony Richardson, that guy. I think the next guy to talk about is Grover Stewart, who we saw a noticeable drop off in the Colts run defense when he was out. So bringing him back would be nice, but he's going to be expensive, and he's over 30. So I don't really think Grover Stewart's a priority because you can just draft a good defensive interior, which I think the Colts will do. So I think you let Stewart and Moore walk because they're getting older, and you really just prioritize Pittman.
Yeah, I mean, they do have some solid players though, on the bottom of their roster. Julian Blackman, really solid, strong safety. Zach Moss was a fantastic running back too, kind of had a resurgence
They have a
season.
decision to make there. Like paying a backup running back hurts, but he was perfect for them. So it's
He
tough.
was. I mean, when Jonathan Taylor was, had injury and then, was out the first couple of weeks, he was one of the better running backs in the NFL to start off the season. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, depending on price, he might, I don't know, he might, I see Zach Moss leaving. I don't see them re-signing him, personally, but I mean, I don't think it'd be a bad move, but I think Julian Blackman would be a resign. Yeah, Michael Pittman, you're franchise tagging him if you can't keep him. I don't think you you wanna mess that up. You want to keep him for Anthony Richardson and build that rapport. I think Kenny Moore will probably ultimately leave, but yeah, I mean, really, it's Michael Pittman. And then if I'm the Colts, I mean, hell, they're never big. He's Ballard kind of likes to go on that coupon side of things, and so I could see like them replacing like a Kenny Moore with like a Keyshawn Nixon. That would kind of make sense to me, for free agency. I could see them getting like a Darnell Mooney. I feel like that would be a good fit for Anthony Richardson, that kind of, take off the top kind of guy. So those are kind of the signings, not big splashy, but under the radar, solid, starter pieces.
Yeah, 100%. The Colts are in for a fun offseason. You got Ant coming back with the cap space. It will be fun. And with that, let's go into their division rival, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you really just got two players to talk about. And one of them is one of the premier players in this free agency class. That is edge rusher Josh Allen, just a complete havoc wrecker. And I guess the discussion is: do you franchise tag him? Do you give him the bag? You're not going to let him walk. I don't really see him walking. So, what do you do with Josh Allen? And then we'll get into the Ridley discussion after.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to start off, they are 19th in cap space with $17 million dollars. And yeah, Josh Allen, definitely, played good when he needed to play good on an upcoming contract year. He had 17 sacks. Josh Allen's going to kind of have to ride his price. They're going to have to write a blank checkbook and then figure it out. But yeah, Josh Allen, you franchise tag him. You don't give him the option to even talk to other teams. He is so valuable to this team. You cut Calvin Ridley. You don't give up a second round pick. You give up a sixth round or whatever it is, but you get rid of Calvin Ridley. And then, oh man, Kayvon Chason, depending on what he costs, wouldn't be bad. Ezra Cleveland wouldn't be a bad guard for depth piece, to resign. But yeah, I mean, really, I don't think there's any pressing needs outside of Josh Allen who are free agents.
Yeah, no, I think you just prioritize Josh Allen. You let Ridley walk. You draft a receiver, probably round one. You bring in more offensive line and try to get as many defensive guys as you can in free agency. And I think that's the ultimate plan for the
You try
Jaguars.
and get Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. You'd
That's
be beautiful, Trevor. That's your goal. That's your goal for the offseason.
offseason plan for the Jaguars. We laid out the blueprint. Just get Trevor, Brian Thomas, because I think that might make Trevor into like a real star, and it would really help Trevor.
They
And
they struggled in the red zone, and Brian Thomas Jr. had 17 touchdowns for LSU this year. So, and a huge dude, a big red zone threat. That'd be fantastic for Trevor.
I need that fit. And with that, let's go on to the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. And it's the discussion of the best free agent in this class. It's not really even a question. I feel like most years there's a big kind of argument as to who is the best free agent in the class. But this year it's Chris Jones, and there's not really anyone close. So the discussion's Chris Jones. You had him at the Chiefs parade saying that um first of all, the Chiefs parade tragedy was terrible. So condolences to anyone involved in that. That was just terrible. But at the parade, he was drunk, obviously, saying that he's staying in Kansas City for another 2 years, and they're running it back. And then his agent was tweeting he had too much to drink. They need to stop letting them talk. So I don't know. I think Chris Jones. I honestly think he might leave. You had like the farewell tour vibes week one against the Lions, where he was watching the game in the stands, and it just felt like this was his last year with the Chiefs. It was just weird vibes. I'm kind of still getting those vibes. I could even see L'Jarius Sneed walking as well. I could see both of them walking. But I mean, you also have the chance at a three-peat. I could see both of them coming back because they're the Chiefs, and it's kind of a hard discussion. Where are you at with Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed, the two main guys?
That's tough. Two key starters to their team. Probably the two biggest difference makers on that entire defense was Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. And I mean, they're not in a bad cap situation right now. They're $22 million. They're 17th. They're right in the middle of the pack. I Patrick Mahomes said he's going to start doing the Tom Brady approach, and they're gonna adjust his contract to where he doesn't have a huge cap hit, and he's gonna take a team friendly deal, so they can go for that three-peat, which is just awful hearing from a Chargers fan because it's just great. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think L'Jarius Sneed would be my number one. I mean, Chris Jones is gonna be 30 at the start of next season. He's gonna require $20+ million a year. Um, and I mean, I think they go and address, defensive tackle in the draft. I think they draft a Chris Jenkins. I think they draft a Byron Murphy Jr. and they just solve that problem. And if I'm them, I probably do franchise L'Jarius Sneed. He is an elite corner. You keep that pairing of him and Trent McDuffie, and as your 1 and 2, and you're looking really good. But yeah, they have a lot of guys. I mean, McCole Hardman, Drew Tranquil, Mike Edwards, Donovan Smith, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tommy Townsend, Willie Gay, Jerick McKinnon, Derek Noddy, Richie James. I mean, there's quite a bit of guys to resign on this team. It's going to be interesting, the approach. I would definitely probably look to resign Drew Tranquil and Willie Gay, and you keep that linebacker core, which was just been so lethal for the Chiefs all year long. So yeah, I'm franchising. Sum it up. Sorry, I'm blabbering, but franchising L'Jarius Sneed. I'm re-signing for sure Willie Gay and Drew Tranquil, and then I'm looking for the draft for the other.
Yeah, personally, the Chiefs are so hard. Like personally, I think I'm just gonna franchise tag Chris Jones and let Sneed walk, because I think McDuffie is the CB1 on that team. But also I am a big corner guy, so I could see why you would love having Sneed and McDuffie. That's absurd. So either way, it's kind of a wash for me. I struggle with that. I would sign one of Gay or Tranquil because I'm really optimistic in Chanel, who was their highest graded player in the Super Bowl, which is incredible. This team is just ridiculous. They should just not let the Chiefs draft.
And they have Nick Bolton too. I mean, yeah, they've got a very good team. But yeah, I mean, Chris Jones probably single-handedly on that defense. I probably would lean to him over L'Jarius. I think I said L'Jarius Sneed, but thinking about it, Chris Jones, probably the biggest difference maker. So you can run it back with him for 1 to 2 years and you try for that three-peat. He really single-handedly is one of the most biggest difference makers in the NFL on that line.
Such a hard discussion with the Chiefs. It'll be very interesting to see what they do. But let's go to their division rival, Raiders. And there's really just one guy to talk about in this one. You've got Jimmy G, who is 100% not going to be back with the team. Terrible signing. They're definitely going to be releasing him. And then you got one other guy to talk about, and that is Josh Jacobs, the running back. Who, I mean, I'll just save some time. I think he's going to be gone. I think they liked what they saw out of Zamir White. He does feel like a Josh Jacobs type running back, and it just seems like the Raiders will take a running back in the second or third round, one of their top guys in this draft. So I mean, Josh Jacobs is the only guy I want to talk about here. Are you bringing Josh Jacobs back? I don't know.
Tom Telesco's the GM. He is known to retain a running back. Well, I mean, he didn't pay Melvin Gordon. He did sign Austin Eckler. They were able to work out some of those.
Could Eckler be Zamir White?
Yeah, they're not going to resign Josh Jacobs. Yeah, yeah, no, Zamir White will take over that, and they'll look, for a cheaper guy. I mean, I wouldn't even be if it was Zamir White and Austin Eckler next year. I don't think Austin Eckler is going to require a lot. Obviously,
Honestly, I think you just cracked I think that's what it's going to be. Honestly,
yeah, Zamir White, Austin Eckler, I could see that as a 1-2 punch. I think there's going to be a lot of turnover from the Chargers. I mean, the Raiders have $43 million in cap space. They have plenty of money to spend. Obviously, Jimmy G is tough situation. Quarterback is a tough situation. They have to look to address quarterback at some point. You cannot roll into next season with Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy Garoppolo. I just think that is reckless at this point. You showed, I mean, Pierce showed that I don't think he likes either of them. I think he showed that, he doesn't care how much they paid Jimmy G. He's not a good enough starter, and there's no way Aiden O'Connell you can feel confident in going into a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Sean Payton and saying, yeah, Aiden O'Connell's our dude. It doesn't work. So they'll definitely be looking to address a quarterback, whether it's via free agency or the draft. I think probably the draft, but yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really anyone I resign. I do not. I don't think there's anyone on this thing that I care to resign. Depending on what Josh Jacobs' value ends up being and whether they can resign him to a better deal, because I think the running back free agency market is going to be tough for the running backs this year. But yeah, I mean, there's no one I care to retain. There's I don't know. Is there for you?
no, literally no one. I think
Yeah.
the one guy that even I would think of resigning is Bilal Nichols, the interior defensive lineman, just because you can't have too many good rotational defensive linemen. But I mean, you've got Andre James at center, who is 100% going to be let go because they're apparently planning on moving Dylan Parham to center. So I mean, that should be an interesting project in itself. The Raiders are making some interesting choices this offseason, but
Interesting
let's
team.
I think they're gonna. Let's just get this out of the way. I think they're gonna just sell the farm for Jaden Daniels. I'm just getting the vibes that they're just gonna overpay for Jaden Daniels too. So it'll be
Tom
interesting.
Telesco has never traded back, but he has traded up in his tenure. In his 11 years, he's never traded down, but he has traded up.
Yeah, and Stores says, be ready for a boring draft if you're a Raiders fan because you're gonna have 7 picks and 7 rounds and that's it. So be ready.
It's not gonna be much maneuvering. You might move up for a running back. You might trade your 3 7s for a 6 and draft a running back, and that's about it. You'll lose draft picks. You will not gain any. But Tom Telesco in his tenure has had 2 good quarterbacks. He drafted Justin Herbert, and I mean he walked into Phillip Rivers, but he may have the makeup to draft a decent quarterback and know what he's looking for. So if anything to be excited for, maybe it's that.
100%. With that, let's go on to the division rival Chargers. Your Chargers. I'll let you talk about your Chargers. I just want to get one thing out of the way. You prioritize Alohi Gilman. He's going to be cheap. He's a perfect complement to Duran. I think he's one of the more underrated safeties in the NFL. I think Alohi Gilman's a must. You cut Khalil Mack because it's the most obvious decision on the team. But what else are you doing with the Chargers?
A lot. We got a lot to do. Yeah, first and foremost, I mean the players that I'm keeping. If you scroll down the bottom, it's going to be none of these top guys. I'll tell you that. Depending Will Clapp for a backup center is fine. I think you do prioritize Alohi Gilman. Obviously, Cameron Dicker is a restricted free agent, so he will be back with the team. Jalen Hawkins is not a bad safety piece, so Jalen Hawkins is going to be very cheap. I'd bring him back. Everyone else, I am letting walk. I do not care. And then we're looking to, move a lot. We got a lot of money to move off the books. And, as Chargers fans know, it's the big 4 that we have. We got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Khalil Mack, and Joey Bosa that each have 20 plus, even 30 plus $1 million cap hits. And so you move off of a couple of those guys, it saves you a lot of money. Corey Linsley is obviously going to be retiring, so that's going to save you about 14 million. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of money to move off the books. Ultimately, I think they are going to be cutting slash trading Mike Williams, Khalil Mack, and Joey Bosa. I think Keenan Allen will stay with the team. I think they will restructure his contract to a 2-year deal. It's a little bit more team friendly. He seems to want to stay. But the other three are 20 plus, 30 plus. Like Khalil Mack's a $33 million cap hit. You're moving that off the books. You just don't have a choice. And yeah, you're really looking to build and gain as much, draft equity as much as you can. You got to trade back. You got to collect as many picks because you got a lot of positions to fill. But yeah, and in terms of free agency of just who they have, you really do prioritize Alohi Gilman, sign Cameron Dicker to whatever he wants. He is a fantastic kicker, Dicker the kicker, and then Jalen Hawkins as a depth piece would be the three that I would be happy if we just retain those three.
I literally 100% agree with literally everything you said. I think that's likely what will happen. I will say the one thing I disagree with is I think Joey Bosa stays. It just feels like Harbaugh is going to fall in love with the player Bosa is, the type of player he is. And he just seems like a Harbaugh mentor type player that they're going to want to keep. And I don't really see that trade happening.
Yeah, it would take two parties to tango. Joey Bosa is the one that makes the least sense to cut because he still has 2 years left on his contract. And so if you cut him, there's just not a lot of money. I mean, you save like 14 while taking on like $29 million of dead cap. So it is hard to cut Joey Bosa outright. I think given the right situation of a team, a needy team for edge rusher was to offer something and take on, $24 million of his cap hit, which realistically he's probably worth it. He has an injury bug. But that would be the only way you do move off of Joey Bosa. So you are right there. And I think Harbaugh, again, he may fall in love with Bosa.
Yeah, and then like draft wise with Gerald Everett being a free agent, I think tight end is honestly a spot that you can look at like Brock Bowers or Jatavion Sanders are probably going to go for one of the top guys. And anything else you want to say on the Chargers offseason?
Yeah, I mean, as the Chargers right now at the fifth pick, your biggest need is draft picks. So as tough as it is, and as much as it sucks as a Chargers fan, because you got Malik Neighbors, Romo Dunze, Joe Alt, Brock Bowers all sitting there. I think ultimately the best thing to do is to trade down if teams are willing to want to trade up, and you collect as much draft capital as possible. And who knows, maybe you get a Brock Bowers if you trade down to like an 8 with Atlanta if they get desperate for a Jaden Daniels. You trade down and get Brock Bowers and get picks.
100%. It'll be insanely exciting for Harbaugh and Herbert's Chargers. And with that, let's go on to the other LA team. And there's literally one free agent that we need to talk about, and that is Kevin Dotson, who had an incredible season this year, one of the higher graded linemen in PFF. Just a great resurgence to his career after the Steelers cut him. So another good identification by the Rams front office, throwing a dart at Kevin Dotson. And I think he's a priority. I know for a fact almost every single team is going to be throwing money at Kevin Dotson. So I don't know if you can bring him back, but I mean, you don't have any other free agents that I'm worried about. So if I'm the Rams, I'm literally just attacking Kevin Dotson. If I can't get him, then I'll draft a bunch of interior players in the draft. But I mean, I really think it's just Dotson, and then I mean that's literally like all I'm doing for the Rams offseason.
Is that all? Is there anyone else if you scroll down below? Yeah, Dotson, and I mean, depending on John Johnson for a rotational safety piece, I don't think he will cost much. But yeah, Dotson is your number one priority, and the Rams are sitting here at 12th in cap space with 35 million, so they'll have plenty of money to resign Dotson, and I think you consider signing John Johnson to a 1-2 year deal for special teams and rotational piece, and yeah, you keep building through the draft. Sean McVay. Les Snead, some of the best drafters, what they did and what their short 2-year rebuild was pretty incredible, and they're already in a really good spot. And I mean, what do you think? How long do you think Stafford has to play? Just have to throw that out.
The way he played this year, I would say a few years. I mean, he played like Super Bowl Stafford this year. So I mean, at this rate, I would say at least 2 more years. I think you kind of plan on getting his replacement maybe next year.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I don't know if you address anything in the draft this year, or you're interested in a Justin Fields, but Yeah, I think I agree. I think he's still got 2 years left with Stafford, and you look at free agency next year and the draft next year.
Yeah, and in the draft, you're going to attack corner for sure. You have some needs. You're going to attack a lot of positions, but I think corner is the main need. Akello Witherspoon's a free agent. I think if you draft a corner and bring in Witherspoon as a CB2, that would actually be fun. He had a pretty solid year this year, and yeah, like you said, you bring in either John Johnson or Jordan Fuller, one of the safeties, and I think that's really it for the Rams.
Yeah.
All right, with that, let's go on to the Miami Dolphins, who they've really got two beefy linemen that I want to talk about here, and that is Connor Williams and Christian Wilkins, interior on the offense and defense. I mean, Connor Williams was one of the better centers in the NFL last year before getting injured. He's only 27. I would probably prioritize him over everyone just because I think the Dolphins offensive line has been rough. So I'm prioritizing Connor Williams personally. Christian Wilkins is awesome. You definitely try to bring him back as well. He's a stud interior defensive lineman. He'll probably get a bag. I see someone paying him, and I think I could just see him walking. So I don't know. I think I'm really attacking like Connor Williams, and then that's like main priority here.
Yeah, this is really tough for the Dolphins right now. In the 30th worst cap position with $51 million over the cap. So yeah, I don't even know. Obviously, it's really tough because Christian Wilkins is like that heart and soul of your defense, and right there in the interior where you want to build in the trenches, where they're so desperate on that defensive line, especially with three of their edge rushers getting hurt, and Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, and Van Ginkel. So yeah, they're kind of. I mean, yeah, the Dolphins are in a rough spot right now, and they didn't even re-sign Tua, so I don't even know. I don't even know how that's going to go out. Tua's got to get a deal done too. So I mean, that's just obviously probably his cap hit will be probably low this year and more next year, or in 2 years from now. Excuse me, but I know Tyreek Hill in like a year or two has like a $35 million cap hit. It's something crazy, or maybe even more. Maybe it's even like 40 million. So they definitely have been pushing the money down the road. Their quarterback doesn't even have a long-term deal. Whether they don't even, I don't even know. Do you think Tua is the future of the
No,
Dolphins?
Tua is not a good quarterback.
Tua just cannot show up in clutch moments. He is not a clutch quarterback. He doesn't have a very strong arm. His decision making in big moments is terrible. I have to just get that out of the way. It's just terrible. I don't think Tua is a bad quarterback in like the sense of like he has incredible accuracy. His rapport with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle is really good on timing routes, but I feel like the offense was tailored to Tua. And then once you don't have a Tyreek Hill or a Jalen Waddle, I don't even know if Tua is a top 30 quarterback at that point. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of questionable things with Tua. I mean, when do you move off of Tua though?
I personally am cutting him if I'm the Dolphins just because I know he's not good. Like you can just see it when you watch him. He doesn't have like the it factor. He doesn't have anything that really pushes him over the edge. He's just there, and he's honestly like one of the more bland quarterbacks I've watched recently. In it, like I feel like I don't even have like that much to say on it. It's just more just with my eyes just watching him. I just can't even like take him seriously as a quarterback at this point. Ever since really the back half of the season, he's just not really that good to me. He's not really serious to me.
Cut Tua, sign Joe Flacco.
I would prefer that. I really would.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the Dolphins are, I mean, right now are not looking at a pretty situation, but I mean, if it's me, yeah, obviously Connor Williams, your line is not that great. You got what's his name from the Saints, excuse me. My brain is getting dead an hour and 15 minutes into this podcast. Um,
Armstead.
yeah, Teron Armstead. So there's a lot of aging older players that aren't even on this who are big cap hits. So it's going to be interesting. Maybe he'll be a cap casualty, but I'm scratching my head with the Dolphins trying to figure out what to do. I think it might almost be time even for like a mini competitive rebuild.
Yeah, I mean they're going to keep Tua, so I mean, yeah, all I can say is that's sad that they have to keep Tua for another year and then inevitably move off from him whenever he embarrasses himself. But yeah, sorry for the negative convo with the Dolphins. I just think you need to
No
attack
demeanor,
the
Dan. Just
line.
I brought up two, and he was like,
Yeah, you brought up Tua and you just brought out a whole different side of me. You ruined my whole night. I mean, yeah, he is just a rough quarterback. I wasn't expecting to get into a Tua conversation today, but yeah, I'm just not really optimistic with the Dolphins' future. And unless you get JJ McCarthy, I think JJ McCarthy with McDaniel is like the most beautiful thing in the world. Like I think that is slept on and something that actually could happen because I think he's smart enough to know that and know that Tua's not the guy. So I don't know. It's hard. But do you want to just move on?
Ooh, JJ McCarthy to the Dolphins. We
I think
might
it's
be
perfect.
we might be cooking here or something, Dan. Damn.
Like
Oh,
and that Shanahan offense, like imagine Shanahan with McCarthy.
damn.
That's what I'm saying. But all right,
Literally,
let's.
that's like a better, like almost say like a higher upside of Brock Purdy with like athleticism.
That's what I'm saying.
All
It's perfect.
right, Dan might have just cooked something up here, seekers, watchers. Dan might be cooking something up here. Watch out for JJ McCarthy, Dolphins, 2024 draft. We're just gonna put that out there.
No, yeah, if he does fall, I think they're like the team to go up and get him really. So it is something to watch for. But let's go on to the Vikings because they have two really big name, like top 10 free agents of this class. Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter is coming off another fantastic season like he has every year, just a complete monster. Feels like he's priced himself out of Minnesota. It does feel like he's going to get a payday elsewhere. So you can almost expect Hunter to leave. And then my take on the Kirk Cousins situation is he's down to the Falcons and Vikings, and it's going to be the Vikings. You had him and his son with their shirts off, banging the drum before their last home game this season. The trade deadline, he literally specifically told the Vikings he didn't want to be traded because he just didn't want to leave the area. His family was content. It just there's all the vibes pointing towards Kirk staying. O'Connell likes him, so positive Kirk stays here. If I'm wrong, it'll be Russell Wilson, but it's going to be Kirk. Um, I mean, you bring back Kirk, you're going to be, low on money. I'm not really prioritizing any of these other guys. You do need another edge because with Hunter leaving, Marcus Davenport and your third edge, Wanham are all free agents. So you're going to need to figure out edge. I think that is like the pick at 12 or at 11. You do go Dallas Turner. But yeah, that's my take on the Vikings.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, it's gotta. I mean, let's see where the Vikings are sitting. $28 million in cap space right now. 15th, so again, a middle of the pack team. Um, yeah, I don't really feel unless you sold your soul on somebody in the draft. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, Kirk Cousins 35, he's probably got 2 years left. I think you sign him to a 2-year deal, and then kind of like a Matthew Stafford situation, you're looking for a quarterback next year. But yeah, you bring back Kirk Cousins, you run it back. You got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson. You got really good weapons. I think Dalton Risner would be a guy who's probably not going to sign for a lot. That would be, a pretty solid, guy to bring back. But that's pretty much it. And yeah, I think you look for a quarterback in a couple of years. Free agency, maybe, if you think you're competitive enough, you look at it like a Jadeveon Clowney, a Kyle Van Noy, kind of do what the Ravens did, bring in some competitive guys that aren't going to be that first wave of free agency signings who you can get on better deals. Because yeah, Danielle Hunter is definitely priced out, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look for like a Harrison Smith. There's a few veterans that could be cap casualties here, and Brian Flores just brings in his guys. So yeah, look for that. Look for Flores to bring in some of his guys as free agency. I like you shouting out a Clowney type player. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what the Vikings do. But ultimately, I'm pretty confident that it will be Kirk staying and Hunter leaving, and Kirk will take up a lot of that cap space this year. But let's go to the Patriots. Interesting team, toxic stories coming out with like the Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi having beef or whatever, and just a toxic situation. And this kind of does lead into their offseason because it makes it like hard to draft a quarterback when you have all these needs. You have all these free agents that you're gonna have to figure out how to prioritize. You've got like your two best linemen. I'm not like your two best linemen. Your only two good linemen, Mike Onwenu and Trent Brown, are really good and had really good seasons, but they're two free agents. So you're stuck with zero good offensive linemen on your team right now. Maybe Cole Strange you can count as one, but yeah, the Patriots are in a rough spot. I don't really know what they do. I doubt they bring back Trent Brown at 30. I think you really prioritize Mike Onwenu, obviously one of the better offensive linemen. Kyle Duggar has been a kind of a Belichick guy, so you could definitely see Duggar leaving, but maybe Mayo will just want to keep him in the same scheme. So I actually probably expect Duggar to come back with Mayo. But yeah, other than that, I don't really see anyone that I'm prioritizing. I think Uche walks. Anyone that you're prioritizing here?
Oh gosh, no. I mean, depending on obviously, yeah. I mean, the Patriots are not going to find a quarterback. As much as I want to say it, there's no quarterback in free agency that the Patriots are going to get. There's just no one that makes sense. And this team obviously needs a quarterback. You're done. The Mac Jones, Bailey Zapp era is over. Um, but yeah, I mean Hunter Henry, depending if you want to give. I think they have to take a quarterback at 3. I'm just going to get out of the way. And that's why it's tough with the Jaden Daniels sweepstakes because I don't think it really is a sweepstakes. I think he goes at 3. You need a quarterback. You have no choice but to get a quarterback, and it's going to be Gerard Mayo needs to build around a guy. And gosh, no, I think you sell the farm here. I don't think there's anyone worth resigning. You have a ton of money. You go out and you get Gerard Mayo's type of guys. I mean, maybe instead of re-signing like a Hunter Henry and a Trent Brown, you don't even consider those guys. You go get like a Mike Evans for your Jaden Daniels, because Patriots right now in a cap situation do have $70 million. They're third in cap space, so they can go be aggressive in free agency and build ultimately around a rookie quarterback if they can get one.
Yeah. So more of the story is I'm attacking Onwenu, Duggar.
Yeah, Unawanu, of course. Yeah, sorry, I kind of forgot to mention his name, but yeah, and then Duggar. Those be the two.
Yeah, and then I mean, if you since they have so much cap, if you can even bring back Trent Brown, just because you literally need like 4 other offensive linemen to start fill the lineup. But let's go on to the Saints, and this is going to be a kind of a funny and a very quick discussion because they have the least amount of cap space in the NFL with negative 81 million. They've been kicking the can down the road for a little bit now, so there's literally not one player that we're going to discuss here except for Rashid Shaheed, who's a restricted free agent, so it'll be obviously easy to retain and it'll be a no-brainer. So there's literally nothing to talk about, and we can almost skip over it. What do you want to say about the Saints?
Yeah, the Saints put themselves in a brilliant position, and signing Derek Carr was brilliant. And I don't know why this team has thought they were Super Bowl contenders for the last 10 years. But yeah, Raheem Shaheed, resign him. That's good.
Even though he's restricted, so it's literally a lock. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, he's a restricted free agent. You bring him back, and you try and move on. I mean, I don't even know how. I mean, Cam Jordan
yeah, that
really
that's a
has.
good point. Yeah, cut Cam Jordan, cut all the veterans, cut everyone.
Yeah, you kind of. I mean, I don't know what Kamara's cap hit is, but I'm sure he'll have to be caught. Michael Thomas, you're probably gonna have to definitely cut him. Taysom Hill,
Taysom.
yeah, you have to move off of him. You're kind of trapped on Derek Carr. You're kind of in prison with him at this point. So you're gonna have to ride that out. I mean, I don't know what they're paying Jameis, but you're probably gonna have to cut him.
Wait,
So,
I think Jameis not a free agent? Yeah,
oh,
Jameis is a free agent. I don't know why I
oh,
don't see him on here. He is a free agent though. I don't know why he's not on here. That is odd. But yeah, Jameis is a free agent, so I guess he'll walk though. I think he's actually going to get a deal somewhere, more than the Saints can pay for sure.
maybe the
Um,
Jets. Their owner said they didn't have a backup quarterback last year, so Jameis can keep you competitive.
yeah, that would be a very good backup to have. And yeah, like you said, Michael Thomas is the obvious cut, and then I think maybe both the safeties, Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May, at least one of them will get cut. So yeah, a lot of cuts to come for the Saints. That's
A
literally
lot of turnover for the Saints. I think it's rebuild time. There's no more denying it. It's rebuild time.
not a lot of margin for error either. So you have to hit on those draft picks. And with that, let's go on to the Giants, who kind of have a similar discussion to the Raiders here. Are you paying your star running back? You letting him walk? It does seem like they are gonna let him walk. But Dable loves Saquon, so I don't know. What do you think they do?
I don't know. I mean, you're 16, so you're literally dead middle of the cap with $26 million. Gosh, I mean, yeah, I mean, if I mean, I prioritize guys. I'm sorry, Saquon. Saquon is a brilliant running back, but I don't know if the Giants are really in any position to pay Saquon $10 to $15 million a year. I'm looking at Adoree Jackson. I'm looking at Xavier McKinney. I'm looking at Isaiah Simmons. I'm looking at our Darnay Holmes. I'm looking at those type of guys. I think you bring back your meat and potatoes of the roster. You let you have to let Saquon. I just don't think it would be financially okay, which sucks, even though he's a difference maker at running back. But yeah, and arguably their best player. They screwed up with signing Daniel Jones to a big contract. He definitely was not deserving of that contract. But yeah, now you just kind of have to face the consequences. And Saquon Barkley, former second overall pick, I think he's going to be gone.
Yeah, for me, this is really simple. You let Saquon wait out his whole his market. If he doesn't get an offer, then fine, you get him for cheap. If not, if he gets an offer, then fine. I really don't care. I'll replace the running back pretty easily if I'm Brian Dable. So my person that I am prioritizing is Xavier McKinney. Easily, he's a really solid safety, only 24 and a half. I'm easily prioritizing him. I would take Isaiah Simmons back as well. He actually was pretty decent as a linebacker for them. So I would kind of prioritize those two defensive players, really trying to move on from everyone
And
else.
I guess maybe I spoke too soon. Adoree Jackson is really $13 million.
Well,
He
that was like his 2023 value. He's
uh,
not going to get that much money. He had a pretty bad
they,
season, but
depending if he's like I would say his value, in my opinion, be 4 to 6 million.
no, yeah,
Yeah, at that price, yeah. If he's more than 8, then no.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that's kind of where I stand. Yeah, you get some of your key defense players back, and yeah, you wait out Saquon.
And in the draft, you attack receiver. You go for a big body outside receiver that you've needed for a while.
You get Romo Dunze,
Yep,
you won.
yeah, literally perfect for them. And with that, let's go on to the other New York team, the New York Jets, and you've got general manager Aaron Rodgers taking control of this team, making all the moves. So it will be fun to see what he does with pick 10. It seems like an Aaron Rodgers thing to do would be like draft uh, Bowers or something over a lineman. So it will be fun to see how Aaron navigates this offseason. I know for a fact that David Bakhtiari will be a cap casualty and he's going to be a Jet. So I guess you could fill in Bakhtiari as your left tackle, and you could either draft Puaga at 10 and make him your right tackle, and that's pretty insane, or just draft Bowers at 10. It feels like that's going to happen. And then these free agents, it sounds like they're letting Bryce Huff walk, which personally for me, I think he's my priority. I think I'm taking Bryce Huff over everyone, but it does indicate, all signs indicate that Bryce Huff will be walking. So someone's going to get a good signing there. That is a little bit of a fumble by the Jets because looking at these free agents, I don't even think there's really anyone I even want other than Bryce Huff. So yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. No, really, yeah. It's kind of Bryce Huff on this list, and I don't even know if I'm considering anyone else. Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, and it does seem, I mean, they pretty much, I mean, Bryce Huff's kind of even given the indication, yeah, I'm not giving any discounts. I don't think they're going to pay me. Jets have $7 million cap space. Aaron Rodgers is going to use every little bit of that towards David Bakhtiari and trying to trade for Devontae Adams. I think ultimately it looks like they might give up a second pick for Devontae Adams. So yeah, general manager Aaron Rodgers is going to be looking to do that. I think their actual general manager is going to be looking for a backup quarterback as well, in case 38 years or 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers does go down. They definitely need a contingency plan for quarterback and somebody that can keep them competitive.
Get a damn backup quarterback finally. It's been 2 years, or honestly, like 4 years, and you finally get a backup quarterback. So excited for the Jets that they're taking some big roster decision moves and changes in the front office. And I did forget about Jordan Whitehead. He's a lock. I would definitely want to bring him back. He was
Oh
good.
yeah, I didn't even see him up there. Yeah, Jordan Whitehead is an absolute stud. Yeah, you bring him back. Is Mekhi Becton on here? Am I not seeing him? I think he's a free agent too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mekhi Becton's a free agent, but you let him walk. He had such a disastrous season. Someone's going to pay him. He actually probably will, get a deal in this offseason, but I don't think the Jets bring it back.
Yeah, no, they kind of hate Mekhi Becton. They've kind of made that known.
That let's get on to the next team. Let's go to the Eagles, and there's some rumors that Hassan Reddick might be traded, and it is looking like Reddick will be gone. So I think he's like the first player we could talk about because I honestly think he'll end up being cut. I think Reddick will have less of a market than they're happy with. So I think he'll end up being cut, and I feel like he's going to be a Cardinal or something like that.
Going
Reuniting.
back to the Cardinals, that'd be dope.
Yeah, going
Texans would be
back
a
to the
fun team.
Cardinals and reuniting with Gannon, double reuniting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind the Texans either. I think they'd be an absolute steal for pair him with Will Anderson and even keep Grenard, and you have those as your big three. That'd be lethal. I'd love that.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. And then there's only, I think, one conversation for the Eagles, and it's DeAndre Swift, but you're not bringing DeAndre Swift back. So I don't think there's a conversation with the Eagles. If I'm being honest, I didn't even know that Swift was a free agent this year. So look for running back in the draft for the Eagles. I think they're gonna get I look for like Derrick Henry or Josh Jacobs or Saquon, one of those three to land in Philly. I didn't even really realize this, but yeah, I think they're going to get one of the big name running backs, and that's kind of what you talk about this year.
Oh, yeah, they're all three, Penny, Swift, and Scott. They do have Gainwell, but yeah, I mean, obviously you're gonna you're gonna add to that room. Dan hating on Zacchaeus apparently.
No,
Very
yeah,
underrated guy. Had some big time catches. Not a bad wide receiver for Dan. Come on.
I'm more of a Quez Watkins guy, but no, I'm letting both of them walk. I want to draft receivers. It's fine.
Yeah, no, there's really no priorities here. You go after the draft, you go in free agency, and I think you have to go in free agency and look for value in corner, and then I think you go into the draft and you take a corner first round no matter what. And um, you know, we'll see what center whether they move Jurgens to center and kick somebody to guard, or they draft a center in the draft. But they're it's going to be an interesting offseason. But yeah, they gotta go running back in the draft for sure. And then free agency, it's corner, 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 and draft, it's corner, corner, corner.
Running back could be a free agent as well, but yeah, but if you watch the 2023 Eagles, you know what they need. It's one thing. It's the corners. It's kind of a simple conversation. You need secondary. You need all the help you can back there. And with that, let's go on to the Steelers, who are an interesting team with like the quarterback discussion, first of all, because you've got news today that Mike Tomlin really likes Justin Fields, and now the Steelers are the favorite to get Justin Fields. You just released Trubisky. I am feeling the vibes that they're going to roll with Kenny Pickett and like a veteran with him, like a Russ or someone like that. And I think it's stupid. I truly, I think it's silly. I mean, all signs indicated towards them going away from Pickett when they, benched him for Rudolph in a playoff football game. But like the fact that you're going to go back to that next season is pretty crazy to me. So it feels like another one of those situations where they're inevitably going back to the quarterback that they know is going to inevitably not be the guy like Tua. So I'm not really looking forward to the outlook for the Steelers because I'm pretty positive it's going to be Pickett as their starter, and I think that's the wrong decision. I think you definitely go for an upside guy like Fields or just draft someone or even a Russell Wilson or any veteran because I just don't think Pickett's good. So yeah, I think that kind of will limit them a little bit, and then in free agency, I think you're more worried about the draft with the Steelers because you're really wanting to draft a good tackle to replace Okora for. But other than that, I'm not worried about bringing any of these players back, if I'm being honest.
Presley
Mason
Harvin
Rudolph
the
for
third.
sure.
Wait, what?
I would bring back Mason Rudolph actually for sure.
Presley Harvin the third, punter.
Must franchise tag.
That's an obvious. You franchise tag. You just write him a blank check. Presley Harvin the third. You don't even think about it, man. But yeah, the Steelers right now, not in a great situation. 25th in cap space. They're 4 million under or over the cap. Excuse me. But yeah, I don't think there's really any pressing needs here. I think you'd be better off looking at other free agents. I wouldn't mind letting every single person on this list walk and go into free agency for other options. And obviously, there's going to have to be some cap casualties for the Steelers. But honestly, I think Fields would be brilliant. I think you bring Fields into a guy like Mike Tomlin, and you get some real discipline under him, and I think that'd be a perfect system. But kind of in my head. Whether it's too early or whether they could trade back up. But Michael Penix Jr. feels like would be a really good system quarterback for the Steelers. A guy with a really beautiful deep ball, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, just a kind of a surgical quarterback, just a better version of Tua, in my opinion. But I don't know. I don't know why. I kind of like that fit. I don't know where I'd like it with their draft. Where they're at in the draft. It's kind of awkward, but I kind of like that.
Second round, that actually makes sense. I definitely like that shout. It seems realistic because I think they'll bring in a competent backup for Pickett to really compete with him and really push him. So I like that. And then, yeah, I think they're just going to attack corner and offensive line in the draft. And I think that's pretty obvious. Anything else you want to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, first round tackle, there's some good names. Whether you're able to do that in free agency, who knows? But yeah, it'll be interesting. Steelers are an interesting team, and obviously they're in first place for the field sweepstakes, but we'll see.
Okay. And with that, let's go on to the 49ers. Fresh off of losing the Super Bowl, fresh off of scapegoating defensive coordinator Steve Wilkes and firing him. So yeah, you've got some interesting decisions to make on that defensive side. Speaking of, and that's mostly just Chase Young. You trade for him last year. He's 24, almost 25. You're not going to pay him. I don't really see the
Is
49ers.
Ayuk a free agent? Sorry, I don't see him on here.
Chase Young?
Oh no, Brandon Ayuk.
Oh no, Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, Ayuk's a free agent, I think.
Yeah, I think he is. Is he on here?
Yeah, that's weird that he's not on here. Yeah, Ayuk is a free agent as well. So yeah, I guess we'll talk about Ayuk right now because Ayuk might be the main guy, especially on the offensive side. I think he might be walking as well. I just think that a
He's
team
taken
will.
to social media and they don't want to be back. There's some real fire and flames going up in the 49ers locker room right now. There's a lot of finger pointing, there's a lot of scapegoating. Kind of seems like it's turning toxic over there in San Francisco just from social media side of things. What do you take on that?
I'm just confused because I don't think Ayuk's a free agent, but I also thought he was, but it doesn't say he is on this other website. So
Why is he taking to social media? Oh, maybe he's like, well, what's their cap? They're $570,000 over the cap, or sorry, not over, under the cap. So they don't have a lot of money. I'm guessing maybe he's a cap casualty. Not really though, but because he hasn't even gotten a second contract.
yeah, I don't know.
Not
I'm confused about the Ayuk situation now. Not gonna lie. But I mean, if he is a free agent, you want him back, but I feel like he would leave to the Panthers or a team that really needs receivers. So I'm a little bit confused by the Ayuk situation. But I mean, you don't need him. You have so many weapons already, like a almost embarrassment of riches on that offensive side. You can draft receiver, attack it. So I think letting him walk might be the smartest move. I think letting Chase Young walk is definitely fine because you can replace him. You can draft an edge. I feel like they will let him walk. He almost got there were rumors that he was going to be benched in the Super Bowl because he kind of had effort issues and finished the season rough. So I do think Chase Young will be walking and if Ayuk's a free agent, I think he'll walk too.
Yeah, gosh, I don't really know if there's too many guys I really care about. You got an incredible defensive line. Shout out Nick Bosa being held, just like his brother was in the playoffs. But Nick Bosa in a bigger moment and almost held on every single play, never got one call. Can we just talk about Jawan Taylor? Dude's terrible football, but he gets away with holding, so I mean, it's crazy.
So
So
I've got the Brandon Ayuk thing figured out. So he's set to be a free agent after next season, but his contract skyrockets this offseason to 14 million. So the concept is he's a trade candidate. So he's like the main trade target because his contract skyrockets so much that they might want to trade him before that 14 million hits.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I guess okay, yeah, and I mean, you could probably honestly a second or a third round pick and just find another Brandon Ayuk, because they're very competent drafters. So yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, is there really anyone you care to bring back? I mean, you have a solid defensive line, even if you let Randy Gregory, Chase Young, Javon Kinlaw go. Um, Sean Gibson's old. I mean, there's a lot of old guys. Sam Darnold, gonna get signed maybe by the Jets. Maybe the Jets want him back.
Juwan Jennings, I would prioritize for the blocking and if you lose Ayuk.
And it's John Jennings, best player in the Super Bowl, and he's like he's 26 years old.
Yeah, he'll
Ben
be back.
Arch is not horrible, I guess, for rotational guard. But yeah, I mean, hell, maybe Juwan Jennings. I mean, and he's going to be cheap. And he was a stud. He was an absolute stud, and Brock Purdy was having some really good rapport with him. So yeah, maybe Juwan Jennings is the one guy you bring back. Ben Bart's not bad. Um, yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, for me, you were just in the Super Bowl. You were a dominant team. You just reload. I mean, if you can get like a Feliciano, just these veterans on cheap deals, if you can get them on minimum contracts, even like a Kinlaw, if no one throws contracts at him, just to try to get these guys back on cheap deals for depth. You're a contender, you're gonna be all in. So yeah, watch for the Niners to make a lot of smaller moves like that. And let's go on to their division rivals, Seahawks. And I'm excited to ask you about kind of the main question for the Seahawks, and that is ultimately Leonard Williams, who they traded for last year, but he is a free agent. He's probably going to make a decent amount of money in the open market. Are you paying Leonard Williams as Mike McDonald, or are you looking to like throw a bag at Madubuike, or just you got Draymond Jones last year in the offseason. You've got a decent defensive line. I don't know. What do you
Got
do?
Chen and Owosu. I mean, you've drafted a few rookies over the past few years. Sorry, I can't name drop right now. My mind is running a blank. But yeah, you Chen.
Boye Mafe has been a
Yeah,
star.
Boye Mafe, who's actually was a struggle and actually looks to be actually having a resurgence. But yeah, no, I don't think I am. I think I'm letting Leonard Williams walk. I think I'm trying to get a comp pick from that. And yeah, maybe I am throwing a bag at Madubuike. Maybe I'm looking for, I'm looking to get younger, I guess, at that position, and maybe like a Chase Young, somebody who could really mold into that. I mean, hell, I wouldn't even mind getting a little older and signing a 1 year deal with Jadeveon Clowney. I keep throwing out his name, but I think that would be good in that Mike McDonald system where he thrived so much, and I think he would take a pretty team friendly deal. But where are we looking at cap situation for the Seahawks?
Let's
They
see.
are they're 24th with they're a million, they're 1.5 or 1.6 million dollars over the cap. I think Bobby Wagner is gonna be back. I don't
I
know.
would let Wagner walk.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know.
Wagner.
Okay, so him and Devin Bush are both free agent. Who would you choose, or would you let both walk and just draft it a linebacker? I guess that's the question.
Really,
Wait, Jordan Brooks is a free agent too. All three of them are free
oh,
agent.
all right. So yeah, we're throwing the bag of Jordan Brooks. Leonard Williams, Bobby Wagner. I mean, depending on how much Devin Bush is planning on trying to make. But yeah, Jordan Brooks is your number one priority. Damian Lewis, I'll probably try and bring him back too. Um, Gosh, and what do you think about Gino? I know they have like an out in his contract. I just don't really think it's maybe the time or the place. I think they probably run it 1 year, another year with Gino. I know it's the last year of his contract, but they do have an out that they don't almost take on like any dead money. But they'll probably run it back. They'll probably need a veteran quarterback. There's probably no one better than Geno Smith. They're not in a good position to draft a quarterback unless they fell in love with like a Bo Nix, which gosh, I don't know. Maybe, maybe, um, maybe they roll with Drew. Oh, Drew Lock's a free agent too. Drew Lock was solid last year. Yeah, Jordan Brooks, and I think honestly Jordan Brooks and
Damian Lewis.
yeah, I think I'm bringing those two back, and then I'm probably looking for a cheaper vet in free agency. I think I'm letting Leonard Williams and Bob Wagner walk. I don't know. I honestly don't think they can afford Leonard Williams, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I do think Leonard Williams does walk as well, realistically. And with that, let's go on to the Buccaneers. Interesting with Baker. First of all, I guess that's kind of the question here. It's kind of an obvious one though. I feel like with the playoff win, with the good vibes at the end of the season, Baker's gonna be retained. They're gonna find a way to bring him back. He'll have it'll be a more expensive deal than it was before the playoffs. They're gonna have to pay him a pretty penny for sure. But I just fully expect him to be back, and Mike Evans as well. I kind of just it feels like they're gonna run it back because of how successful last season was, even if it's gonna be expensive.
100%. Yeah, Tampa Bay, not in a bad cap situation. 10th, $43 million under the cap. So yeah, I mean, obviously Baker Mayfield is not going anywhere. He played his ass off. He earned himself. Like we were saying, every year, like every playoff win and making it to the playoffs, Baker Mayfield was just adding almost like $10 million to with every win at the end of the season. And I mean, Baker Mayfield played his ass off, and he deserves a contract. Baker Mayfield's a dog. He really is. But Baker Mayfield, gosh, I'd almost prioritize Antoine Winfield Jr. I'm paying Baker. I don't know. You got Chris Godwin. I think you're hear me out on this. I don't know. Mike Williams or Mike Evans, excuse me. What do you I mean, what's he gonna cost? I
No,
mean,
that's the crazy thing because I totally agree. I think the smart thing would be not retaining Mike Evans and maybe even Baker as well. But I just think that they're going to retain them both. I think Baker's almost like a lock to be retained at this point. Like there's
he
no,
has to be. You could
yeah,
not let Baker walk. They're in no situation to. But you can't let Antoine Winfield Jr. You got to give him the bag. I think he's going to be one of the higher paid safeties in the league. He's incredible.
he could be
Uh,
franchise tagged, but I could see him sneakily leaving as well. I could like maybe he goes to the Vikings, his dad's team. I don't know.
that'd be so dumb. They'd be stupid. Devin White. I think Devin White and Levante David are both gone.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously Baker's number one. Baker's number one. You can't let Baker walk. Yeah, it's really Mike Evans is tough. I mean, yeah, if it was my personal opinion, yeah, I think they somehow, and I think Mike Evans will actually probably come back on a team friendly deal. I think you sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, with an out in a year or two, depending on if his play declines. But I mean, he's not declined at all. He's one of the top receivers in the NFL. And he has such a good rapport with Baker Mayfield. So yeah, maybe you keep Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, you try and retain Antoine Winfield. I don't think anyone else really matters. You rebuild it through the draft.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think in the draft you attack like corner, definitely offensive line. A Troy Fatanu in round one would be beautiful. If you do lose Evans, a receiver would be nice. But yeah, anything else you want to say in the Bucks?
I mean, if you lose Evans and you were able to get like a Brian Thomas,
Oh, that's the smart thing to do. That's what I'm saying. I think getting letting Evans walk is the smart thing to do. 100%. I just don't know if they will.
yeah, I don't think they will, but yeah. Um, I mean, they've done really good at drafting over the last couple of years. Kalaj Kance, they got Vita Vea, and they got. I mean, they're pretty decent at corner. They could use some edge help. And I mean, they got receiver. I mean, Chris Godwin's a good receiver. Who else do they have on? Who else is their receivers right now?
Trey
Sorry.
Palmer,
Oh, Trey Palmer, the dog.
go.
uh, but yeah, I mean, yeah, we discussed it. I think that's what they'll do. I think you have to keep Baker and Winfield Jr. and you do whatever you feel is right with Evans.
Yeah, absolute studs. It's a hard decision for them. And that let's go to the Titans, who there's really two players I want to talk about here, and that's Derrick Henry and Aziz Al-Shaair. But the Titans aren't really a discussion because we kind of know the direction they're heading, what they're doing. We know with Derrick Henry's kind of farewell speech to the last game of the season that he is going to be gone. He will be playing elsewhere, probably for like the Eagles or Ravens. Personally, it feels like that direction for me. Maybe like sneakily the Chargers. That would be scary. But Ryan Tannehill has a lot of links to the Steelers, so I'm fully expecting that. Um, so yeah, you aren't really expecting to bring back much. Aziz Al-Shaair, I could see just leaving straight up to like the Dolphins or I don't know. I just feel like he will leave, but I think that's my priority because I'm positive Henry's leaving. So I think Aziz Al-Shaair is my priority here. Not really any lineman that I'm wanting to retain. So yeah, I'm just going with him, and I think Sean Murphy Bunting as well if I can get him on a decent deal, which I think I can because he didn't have the best year last year. So I'm going after Al-Shaair and Sean Murphy Bunting.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of turnover on this roster, and you just said Al-Shaair. Obviously, you're gonna retain him. I mean, the Titans are they second in cap space? Yeah, they're second. They have plenty of money to spend, $73 million. So yeah, you keep Al-Shaair, Murphy Bunting. I think honestly, if you could go out and get yourself a Mekhi Becton I mean, maybe even like you get yourself a Jonah Williams. I think you need to attack. I mean, your offensive line is so terrible. You almost got to rebuild the whole thing. You got to look at cheap guards. You probably got to bring in one tackle via free agency, and you have the money to do it. I mean, I'd probably bring in a Jonah Williams if I'm them, and then I'm gonna look at guard as well. And let's see. I mean, a Kevin Zeitler would be really good. A Connor Williams. If you could bring in Jonah Williams, excuse me, if you could bring in Jonah Williams and Connor Williams, that would be fantastic way to start free agency. That would be perfect. Obviously, you know, they got the Bengals offensive coordinator going over there. He's the new head coach, Callahan. Um, and if T. Higgins somehow hits the free agency market, I think you throw it back at T. Higgins. You have the money. I think you have familiarity there. You have scheme familiarity there. T. Higgins already said he would love to go play for Callahan, Brian Callahan there. So you throw it back at T. Higgins if somehow he becomes available. But yeah, Alshire really my number one option, and I really don't care that much for anyone else.
You summed it up perfectly. They have the second most cap space in the NFL. You attack the offensive line position for legendary offensive line coach Bill Callahan, Brian's father. So yeah, it's going to be a fun offseason because I mean you got Skoronski, you can draft a Joe Alt at 7, and then like you said, bring in Connor Williams and a Jonah Williams type player, and you have a almost a revamped offensive line there. So it's definitely going to be exciting for the Titans. You build around Will Levis, you added that defense, and then let's get on to the last team, the Washington Commanders, and not too much of a discussion here. I think Jacoby Brissett is kind of like the free agent for the Commanders that will be the most sought after. It just feels like Brissett will actually fetch a pretty penny in the open market because of how valuable backup quarterbacks are. After we saw kind of how the Jets managed the whole situation last year, it kind of has honestly made a domino effect onto the league. I think you'll see it here in free agency. The backup quarterbacks are going to fetch a pretty penny because of just the Jets last year and just that whole travesty. So with the Commanders, if you can bring back Brissett, I think he's just a perfect backup to have. I wouldn't mind that at all. But other than that, it's kind of just bringing back core like locker room special teams guys like Jeremy Reeves, one of the better special teams guys. So you bring him back. Curtis Samuel, if you can get him back on a cheap deal, he's a fun gadget piece, but you don't really want to pay Curtis Samuel too much going into a year 28 season, age 28 season. Kendall Fuller is going to be really good. I see him being playing for a new team. I just see him signing elsewhere. So I think realistically, you're just bringing back these smaller names. Cody Barton had a pretty horrible season. Don't think they really want to
Cam
touch.
Curl, be
Cam
really
Curl's the one that I think Cam Curl is gone, and I think Cam Curl is going to be overpaid somewhere. That he got benched here last year, and I really just don't really see it with Cam Curl. I don't even think he's like a starter in the NFL at this point. And I know he's going to get paid too, so I think that whoever pays him will fumble that one, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, the Commanders number one in cap space, $83 million, second overall pick. They got a lot of finagling to do. Honestly, I do really like Curtis Samuel. I think he's a great gadget piece. I really like the wide receiver core. I think you run it back with Samuel, Terry McLaurin, and again, late nights pod. My mind is so
Dotson.
yeah, Jahan Dotson. I think you run it back with those three. I think that's super exciting. And, you can go make a splash in free agency. You could be one of the teams. Obviously, you got rid of Montez Sweat. You could go bid on an edge rusher. You could go get, I mean, you've got pretty good defensive tackles on your roster. I know, was it Deron Payne or was it, who's the
Allen,
yeah, yeah. Well, there's one that was, I think it was Deron Payne, if I'm not mistaken, that
or
just signed.
Jonathan Allen.
Oh, it's Jonathan Allen. Yeah. He was the one who was pissed, right? He's like, I'm tired of this. I don't know if he ends up getting traded or he requests a trade. Probably not because they have a new regime, um, new general manager, new head coach, new offensive coordinator. So it's gonna be an overhaul. It's gonna be fun. I think you're drafting Drake May and you're building around him. You go attack free agency for obviously they're a team that needs offensive line help. So you go look at the free agents. You look at that in the second, third round, and should be a pretty exciting team. But yeah, not a lot of free agents. Honestly, I'm really just looking at Curtis Samuel because he is a fun gadget piece, and I think Cliff Kingsbury would really like him. But that's might be it. I mean, I don't hate Cam Curl, but yeah, he probably will go and get overpaid.
And
And
then
yeah,
for the moving on to the draft, I mean, like interior offensive line is a pretty big need for this team. I'm pretty positive you can just pigeonhole and lock in a interior offensive lineman in the second round for this team. You've got Sadiq Charles and Tyler Larson, who were both starting on the interior as free agents. I think you moved Braden Daniels to left guard as you drafted him last year to kind of be that eventual guard replacement. And then I think you just draft a center in like third round, like a Zach Frazier, Christian Haynes, and then I think that offensive line's pretty set with the emergence of Cosme. So yeah, you got a lot of money to work with. There's definitely upside. I kind of am soured off on the Commanders, I'll be honest, because of how the coaching situation played out. They
faster.
they literally got their last resort option. So it was a disaster. And I've lost some some hope in the Redskins front office right now, to be honest.
Yeah, no. So they changed ownership. Somehow they did not. I mean, they got a really good GM, and Adam Peters comes from San Francisco. Obviously, you poach from the farms that are working good and are successful. So Adam Peters was one of the hot names. But yeah, they fumbled Ben Johnson. They fumbled Mike McDonald was their number two. They fumbled that. They end up ultimately going
Slow
down.
it.
Yeah, they fumbled Slowick. They could have gone in a whole number of directions. I don't think when you have to draft a rookie quarterback at 2 overall that it's the smartest move to bring in a defensive minded head coach who's older. I don't think Dan Quinn is a bad coach. I just don't think he was the right coach. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, they got a lot of money to play with. It's going to be interesting to see how they attack free agency. But yeah, this was a long, fun episode. We're grinding. I hope if you guys are stay tuned all the way to the very end, then you are diehard football fans. We appreciate you. We love you. This is fun for us. We'll be doing a lot more free agency stuff. We'll be, going into a more deep dive on specific teams, but just kind of wanted to get into a general consensus of kind of where we stand with these teams, cap space, what they should be looking for. And yeah, we cover all 32 teams. We don't skip any. We'll be here all night, baby.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys tuning in. We went really in depth. Hopefully this gives you guys a good overview on every team's kind of just off season, their biggest needs, and what kind of moves they need to make and what we think they should make. So yeah, really fun episode. We'll have a lot of free agency and off season draft content coming out soon. Exciting stuff. Best time of the year for me. And I think you too. I think we both enjoy this time of year the most. So yeah, really exciting. Anything else you want to say?
No, I love it. I live for this. I live for this. I live for the off season. I live for free agency. I live for the draft. It's one of the most exciting times of the year. I absolutely love it. If any of you draft nerds, give us, draft nerds, free agency nerds, give us comments, give us likes, subscribe, show us a little bit of support and love. We love it. We'll be here all off season. We'll be doing this in-depth stuff, and we'll be doing it a few times a week. So, stay tuned.
Give us a comment for the algorithm. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.
Peace.